Hello my friends! The Nintendo Switch is home to many classic gaming remakes. The console has been blessed with the likes of Zelda remakes as well as Pokemon. With the recent announcement of Pokemon Snap, I've decided to make a top 10 list of my most wanted games that I want remade on the Nintendo Switch. When I talk about remakes, I mean total graphic overhauls with a ton of new features. A lot of these games are excellent games, but with a fresh coat of paint, they can easily enhance the Switch's gaming catalog. Without further ado, let's begin. Number 10. The Pokemon series is arguably Nintendo's most prolific franchise. The series has new iterations each year, as well as remakes. There is a trend with Pokemon games getting remakes, and this time around, it is the 4th generation of Pokemon's turn. Pokemon Diamond and Pearl originally came onto the Nintendo DS with a ton of new features. The 4th generation brought the physical special split, and a new cast of Pokemon to interact with. This marked the beginning of a modern era of Pokemon. For the first time, we can trade with people all over the world. In the remake, we will see Sinnoh in all its great 3D glory. The reason why this game is so low on the list is because this game is probably the most likely to get a remake. Unless Game Freak decides to bamboozle us with a different game, I'm expecting that they will make an announcement for this remake. I'm really just hoping that Game Freak does justice for this remake, as I was a bit disappointed in how they handled Sword and Shield. Sword and Shield was a bit too easy for my taste, and since the 4th generation is known for having one of the most difficult Elite Four members to fight, I am ecstatic to see what we will have in store. Number 9. Pokemon Stadium on the Nintendo 64 is an underrated gem. For the first time, we get to see Pokemon battle in its full 3D glory. Now by today's standard, this is now the norm and it wouldn't be anything special. What a remake can do for the Pokemon franchise is to open up the doors to a more accessible competitive Pokemon environment. Half the reason I don't even want to touch competitive Pokemon on any type of main series game is due to how long it takes to train everything. It takes an insane amount of time to EV train everyone and get them to perfect IVs just to be competitively viable. In my honest opinion, this is a huge gatekeeping problem for many. Yes, I understand that there's great third-party applications such as Pokemon Showdown, but it's an embarrassment that the majority of competitive Pokemon isn't even played on the main game. A remake of this game that adds in a variety of new features such as being able to properly team build and a proper online ranking system could open up the doors to many people to the world of competitive Pokemon. One of the single player features I would love for them to include is to create full endgame teams for all the gym leaders in the Pokemon franchise. I mean, can you imagine being able to go through something like a Kanto Cup with a fully decked out endgame team? There would be a lot of single player content since there are so many generations now. And who could forget the fun minigames that were included? With the announcement of Pokemon Snap, something like this could be possible. But honestly, who really knows? Number 8. Mario Party has been a classic on all Nintendo systems since its first iteration. It's a fun time with family and friends. Nothing really beats that feeling of stealing a star from your friend and the salt that comes out right after. Super Mario Party was probably one of the weakest Mario Party games in the franchise. It had extremely small and uncreative map designs, and lacked a lot of depth with its item systems. Some of the greatest Mario Party games came from the GameCube and the Nintendo 64 era. They had amazing board designs and a ton of fun items to use in the game. I'd really like for them to remaster some of these old classics. A lot of them still hold up great till today, but just needed a fresh coat of paint and some adjustments. I mean, can you guys even imagine if they did something like a collection of Mario Parties 1 through 3 as a Nintendo 64 collection, and then later something like 4 through 7 for a GameCube collection? It would certainly give the Switch a greater party game catalog and would definitely scratch that itch that Super Mario Party could not give me. Number 7. There has been a lack of Metroid games on the Switch. We do have Metroid Prime 4 coming soon, and hopefully the Metroid Prime trilogy. A smaller project that Nintendo can take on is a remake of the classic Game Boy Advance game, Metroid Fusion. Metroid Fusion was my first Metroid game I ever played, and boy did it emit a feeling of fear when I first played it. Nothing scared the living shit out of me as much as this thing did. Can you imagine being an 8-year-old kid playing this game and all of a sudden this creepy thing starts chasing you around everywhere? Besides scaring my pants off, this game was extremely captivating. It had a lot of areas to explore as well as many interesting bosses to fight. We have already seen Nintendo remaking many other classic 2D Metroid games. It would be a shame for them to pass up on Metroid Fusion. Number 6. What happens when you combine an obscure Tetris knockoff with one of Nintendo's most prolific franchises? You get Pokemon Puzzle League. Pokemon Puzzle League is a combination of Tetris Attack and the original Pokemon anime. Tetris Attack is one of the most underrated puzzle games. Unfortunately, this series never stuck around, but a remake of this classic game could be what it needs to reach a massive audience. The gameplay is extremely satisfying. The same feeling of chaining combos together in this puzzle game is the same as doing perfect wave dashes and combos in Melee to me. Not only is the gameplay gripping, but the music is one of the best things about it. I mean, come on, listen to these tracks and tell me you don't get hyped from it. What I would love for Nintendo to do is to modernize this game by adding in new Pokemon and gym leaders. The game already has a ton of features with puzzle sequences and a multiplayer option. A new skin is just what this game needs. Number 5. The disconnect between the recent Paper Mario games and the classic game on the Nintendo 64 has been too much for fans to handle. We have been begging for Nintendo to go back to the old school system, but it seems like they aren't listening. In my honest opinion, a great way for fans to get what they want is a remake of the classic N64 RPG. Besides the Thousand Year Door, no game has quite captured that same feeling. It had a great cast of characters and an amazing aesthetic to back it up. There are so many things that they can do to expand an already great game. They can include many new features such as new badges and a new endgame arena, similar to the Pit of 100 Trials. With a fresh coat of paint and some new additional features, it will please many. This will also introduce many younger gamers to the classic game. Maybe now we will stop sounding like an old man yelling at a video game. Yeah, seriously Nintendo, just do it to please the old fans once. Number 4. During the Nintendo 64 era, 3D platformers ruled the console. One of the greatest games to come out of that era was BanjoKazooie. Although the licensing belongs to Microsoft, we have already seen that they are willing to work with Nintendo. Banjo has already starred in Smash, and there has been a recent trend in remastering old gaming classics. Spyro has a remake, Crash Bandicoot has a remake, and even freaking SpongeBob has a remake. Now all we need is a BanjoKazooie remake. It honestly doesn't even have to be a Switch exclusive. BanjoKazooie included great graphics for its era, a dynamic soundtrack, and complex level design. It's a classic franchise that was unfortunately caught in between an era of the console wars. A remake of this game can spell revival for the beloved franchise. Number 3. If you can name the greatest 3D platformer on the Nintendo 64, then you will know what's next on my list. Super Mario 64 is the most iconic Mario game. You know it's iconic when there's still thousands of people playing it to this day. There's a huge fan base for speedruns, all dedicated to this singular masterpiece. What better way to carry on that legacy than with an adaptation on the Nintendo Switch? Now the game has already been remade once on the Nintendo DS and was overall pretty good. This was not the full potential of the game however, as it was limited to the system it was born on. Bringing this over onto the Switch with updated graphics, alongside with some new features, could be a great thing. It's actually shocking that this game hasn't yet been remade when it would probably sell like hotcakes. I'm seriously hoping that Nintendo will pull it off for this gaming masterpiece. Number 2. When you think of Nintendo JRPGs, the first thing that will probably come to mind is Xenoblade Chronicles. Nintendo has a long-lost forgotten RPG by the name of Golden Sun. Golden Sun was the premier RPG on the Game Boy Advance. The development time for this game far exceeded what was the norm for a handheld game. The result was well worth it as we got this cult classic. The game sold well, but its predecessors failed to meet expectations. It ended off in a cutoff from this franchise. We still see glimpses here and there of Isaac, the main character, in games such as Super Smash Bros. But pretty much, this is a dead series. A reboot would do this series very well. Imagine if they modernized this classic in full 3D. I mean, come on, I did hear Monolith Soft was trying to take on a smaller project. Besides that fact, RPGs have sold very well on the Nintendo Switch, so there is definitely a market for it. Hopefully, Nintendo gives this series another try. Number 1. Fire Emblem has grown to become one of the biggest franchises in Nintendo's lineup. I mean seriously, look at how much love Marth gets in Smash Bros. The first game that Nintendo localized in America was Fire Emblem The Blazing Blade, also known as Fire Emblem 7. It was my first Fire Emblem game ever, and it is by far one of my favorite games of all time. The game had beautiful sprite animations and a compelling story. We have already seen Nintendo revive some of the old classic Fire Emblem games. It would be an amazing idea to modernize this classic game. The fact that Fire Emblem 6 is a direct sequel to Fire Emblem 7 opens up the door for a potential expansion later in the future. Fire Emblem 6 stars Roy as the main protagonist. Isn't it crazy how so many people have played Roy in Smash, but they have never even got to touch him in his own game? This is my personal most wanted remake, and I am hoping one day Nintendo delivers. That concludes my list of the top 10 remakes that I want to see on the Nintendo Switch. Let me know what games you guys want to see on the Switch. If you guys like this video and want to see more content like this, then smash the like button, and thanks for watching.